Jonathan, why don't you tell us what's going on the advocacy front? It's been a roller coaster ride for the last year.
Yeah, thank you, Dan. Good day, everyone. A thunderstorm is moving through just now, so I hope that doesn't interrupt anything. But in highlighting our advocacy program today, we want to also highlight some of the great advocates that have been working with us for many years or for the first time. And really, there's no better place, as the next slide shows, there's no better place to start in our conversation and talking about, as was mentioned earlier, March of this year, when we returned to Capitol Hill for the first time in 3 years. 120 people from all around the country coming to Capitol Hill. And that included some members from our Minnesota delegation. And as the next slide shows, they were able to meet with their senator, Amy Klobuchar, and our agenda for 2023, as was referenced last night, passing the Peace Corps Reauthorization Act and also increasing funding for the Peace Corps for the second consecutive year. So we did a lot of work, as we always do in March during our national days of advocacy in support of the Peace Corps. But our work hasn't stopped. And indeed, as we move forward now into the months of August and September, we've been busy. And as our slide shows here, we have been out in the field. This is the time when instead of coming to Washington, we're doing work out in the field, such as our Louisville, Kentucky RPCVs here holding a in-person meeting with Representative Morgan McGarvey, one of the new members of Congress, meeting with Louisville area Peace Corps volunteers and return volunteers. Meanwhile, in Utah, a virtual office meeting was held, including members from across Utah meeting with representatives and staff of Senator Mike Lee. And a little bit earlier in the summer in Hawaii, in Oahu, the 4th of July parade featured the RPCVs of Hawaii doing advocacy in the form of reminding thousands of people that the Peace Corps continues its work and is ongoing. More recently, in Summit, New Jersey, a social gathering was held that included conversations about advocacy and included this photo message to Senator Robert Menendez, thanking him for his support of the Peace Corps. And a step back to Utah just last week, an op-ed written about the importance of the Peace Corps Reauthorization Act, the importance of the Peace Corps. This op-ed was printed in 2 newspapers in Ogden and in Provo, and is part of an ongoing effort that I'm going to speak to in a moment. And all of that relates to efforts at the federal level, but there's also important work to be done at the state and local level. And we wanted to share a great victory in the state of Colorado that happened earlier this year. And we've got a video that we want to play now to highlight that great success story.
I had my master's degree before I went to the Peace Corps, and I never really thought about it until I saw the Maryland bill pass. And I thought, well, wait a second, that's something that could really help a lot of volunteers as they're coming back from service to be able to make their higher education more affordable. This bill all started when I saw a Facebook post from the National Peace Corps Association showing that Maryland had passed a similar bill allowing for in-state tuition in Maryland. And I just randomly emailed my local legislator, asking if she would be interested in sponsoring a bill similar to that. I really had no expectations that I would even get a response of an email. And the next morning I had an email with a date and time to meet saying that they were interested, and it went from there. I then connected with the advocacy chair from our Colorado returned Peace Corps volunteers, and We worked together to craft the legislation with Representative Amabile to advocate for it. We spoke before the Senate education hearing and the House education hearing to get the bill passed. I had no experience passing legislation before I started this. I actually had to Google, how does a bill become a law in Colorado? I really didn't know anything about this, and still I was able to help advocate for this and get it past the finish line. So I'm really proud of that. And I think other volunteers can do this. Even if they don't know what they're doing, it's possible. People can advocate for the Peace Corps by connecting with the National Peace Corps Association. You can go to their website at peacecorpsconnect.org for lots of resources. You can also connect with your local or state group for returned Peace Corps volunteers and see what ways you can advocate locally.
I want to just thank everyone who's been involved in our advocacy efforts over the years. And we've got many ways in which you can become involved in supporting our advocacy program. And you heard the call last night, for those of you who are with us, from Representative Garamendi. We need everybody involved to move Peace Corps legislation forward. And we started this morning with his call. He referenced Republicans who serve on the House Foreign Affairs Committee. We reached out to about a dozen constituents who are represented by Republicans from those states. Are on the Foreign Affairs Committee, to start urging them to reach out, to hold meetings, to write op-eds. And for all of you, I'm going to put two opportunities coming up on Tuesday to get involved. We're going to do 2 Zoom sessions, one that will be on organizing a district office advocacy meeting, still plenty of time to do that. And then the other on our op-ed and letters to the editor mobilization. So thank you again, and back to you, Dan.
I would like to make a very strong point in that Jonathan, for most of this year, has been doing most of this work by himself. We did have one other staff member, Miriam Foote, until she on a part-time basis until she graduated from her master's degree program in June. But I often reflect on how much more we would be able to do on the advocacy front if Jonathan were a 2 or 3 person team. And that is as we look at grant and fundraising opportunities, one of our biggest priorities is expanding our advocacy team to be able to meet the need. And I would welcome any connections that you have to make that a reality. So please take a look at these action requests from Jonathan. And I really want to especially highlight his often Tuesday evening advocacy group updates for the advocacy coordinators. We're just always inspired by the work that we hear from local efforts around the country.